I am literally staggered by the number of very senior Labour people, including members of the Cabinet, who talk openly about the real possibility, they say, of Starmer not leading them into the next election.
Wow.
It's a massive talking point.
That is interesting.
It's a massive talking point.
It's staggering, chat. Do you hear that? It's staggering that Keir Starmer, the man who wasn't even that liked before the election and is now massively unliked after the election, having lied about his political platform to the membership and then to the electorate. Incredible that he might be so disliked that Labour might not want to have him as the leader during the next election. It's shocking. It's almost like literally anybody on the shitpost left could have told you this for the last 3 years or so, given that we knew that so much of what was happening was completely unsustainable. We knew that he didn't have a serious plan for government. We knew that the electorate were only having him as the default because he had no base of support, he had no popular vision, he had nothing. We could have all told you this was going to happen at any point between 2021 and today. And yet Peston is out here going, oh, it's staggering that people don't like Keir Starmer, he might not lead them into the next election. What else did you expect? Again, good to see they're catching up now. The person on the opposite side of this table, Anushka Asthana, she literally wrote a book because she had spent time with the Starmer Politburo, Labour together, in the run-up to the election, and in the run-up to the election in 2019, on the plot in the background to install Starmer as leader by lying to the membership. Right? She was around Morgan McSweeney throughout this entire period, knowing exactly what was happening to try and oust Corbynism and get rid of the left wing of the Labour Party and to turn them into a centrist party by hoodwinking the membership and trying to make sure they didn't win the election in 2019, right? She knows that Keir Starmer is the accidental Prime Minister. She knows that he never wanted to be Prime Minister, convinced to run by the group of wreckers from the right of the Labour Party. She knew. And so for them to be sitting here like, oh, well, it's crazy that Keir Starmer isn't well liked now that he's in government when he deliberately tried to get rid of his base from his own party, it beggars belief, it really does. Who do I think would take over? I think it's going to be Bridget Phillipson. Might be a bit of a dark horse. I know a lot of people think it's Wes Streeting, but there are two things that the Labour Party keep getting for. Number one, that they've never had a woman as leader, whereas the Tories have had 4. And number 2, they get attacked because they have lost contact with their heartlands, their roots. You know, they're too London-centric is another complaint that you get about the Labour Party. So Bridget Phillipson ticks both boxes. She's a woman and she's from Sunderland. And Sunderland, not only is it a post-industrial town, not only is it really poor in terms of area, and it is a Labour heartland too, but it's also a Labour heartland that's really being threatened by Reform UK, who they believe are their adversaries at the next election. Like Morgan McSweeney is on record as saying to the Cabinet, start talking about immigration or you will lose your seat to Reform. So they know that they're scared already. So installing somebody as leader who ticks both of their identity politics boxes of is both a woman and Northern is a good way of them being able to dispel a lot of these attacks they get over being London-centric and not having a woman as a leader. I think that's going to be who it is. And you can be an education secretary and fly under the radar whilst being trained to have all of the political chops. And I believe that she's a little bit more politically experienced than someone like Keir Starmer is. And I don't think you'd put Wes Streeting into the Department for Health and Social Care if you wanted to move him elsewhere later. You know that fixing the NHS, quote-unquote, making it fit for the future, is a key part of how you'll remain in government come the next election. People will judge you as a government on how you fix the NHS. It was the biggest political talking point, other than the cost of living crisis, in the last election. I think that Wes Streeting is in DHSC for the long haul and is taking his brief seriously because there's loads of private health sector donations to his political campaigns riding on him remaining as the head of the DHSC for the next 5 years. Education, though, you can move around. You're not set in your ways. You're not stuck to that position. It's the ideal place that you would hide somebody who you wanted to be moving on to a different department later on. Not Rayner then? No, she's too left-wing. They'd never let her run. They would change the rules so that the PLP selected the leader if it was mid-parliament. They already said they wanted to do that.
There are a lot of individuals at the highest level who have lost confidence in him. Now, I'm not saying, I slightly think this is sort of early parliament jitters. The thing about politicians is, they love to catastrophize, all of that stuff, right? But for this to be a subject of conversation at the top of the Labour Party so few months after they won a landslide is, for me, astonishing. But it's a fact.
I was speaking to...
But it's not astonishing. Again, it's not a real landslide. It isn't a real landslide. The landslide is off of an even lower number of votes than they got in 2019, the worst result ever. They were gifted a landslide, the Loveless landslide, with historic unpopularity of the Conservative Party and the rise of Reform UK. And the Liz Truss mortgage bombshell that pushed the swing electorate towards the change party, right? All they had to do was say, we aren't Liz Truss. This middle England, middle class, home ownership, aspirational, middle income sector of the electorate, who are the swing demographic because they're not poor enough to vote for Labour or Reform and not rich enough to vote for the Lib Dems or the Conservatives. They are the swing demographic. And because Liz Truss screwed up their mortgages, they voted Labour, and it's no more difficult than that. They were gifted a giant majority through the electoral calculus of first past the post and the rise of Reform. It wasn't a real landslide. You don't get landslides in normal electoral systems off of 33.5% of the vote. And getting such a large majority off of such a small level of popular support, of course you're going to have people hate you. Of course your approval rating is going to be low, especially when you can't bring the country with you because you believe in nothing. If you got into government off of a promise of a mandate for change, and you delivered actual, real, tangible, fundamental change in the direction of society, in the direction of politics, I think you could pull people with you and you could increase support. But he has no vision. He has no plan. He isn't changing anything. All he's doing is being the caretaker government, whilst the Conservative Party get themselves back in order. What's not to like about Starmer? He's only bad at politics and policy and lies all the time and has zero charisma. It's almost like it was a recipe for disaster from the start, again, which any leftist would have been able to tell Robert Peston. But anything outside of, this man is a sensible politician with a sensible haircut and a sensible suit, he must therefore be good at politics, is anathema to these Westminster journalists.
To a very senior colleague at another broadcast organisation, and remembering 97, which on the face of it looks just as bad in a way. He had the Bernie Ecclestone scandal for Tony Blair, and then he actually took benefits off lone parents, which I think rings bells with winter fuel payments, resulted in a massive rebellion, it resulted in ministers being sacked. And they said nothing has ever felt as bad for a new government as this period right now.
No,
clearly...
I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
I was absolutely immersed in the 97 election. I was political editor of the FT at the time. And yeah, things went wrong. The notion that anybody would be talking about replacing Tony Blair at that stage was absurd.
Yeah, because Tony Blair had a larger share of the vote. He had more popularity amongst the public. He had literally any charisma. And whilst that was one policy vote that didn't go his way, in terms of Labour's time in office, they've not only lied about their position, they literally 100% lied about the things they were going to do in government to both their own voters and to the electorate, and to their own members, right? It's just a cavalcade of lies from start to finish. He is the most dishonest politician in British political history, bar none. No one is as big a liar as Keir Starmer, or as ITV like to put it, he has an honesty problem. Real editorialising there. But on top of that, all of the decisions that they've made, there are some of them that are politically difficult, but the public will let you get away with. It's not what the politically engaged will let you get away with if they think that there's a reasonable justification for a policy. It's the stuff that the politically disengaged will immediately notice, right? That is the worst kind of policy to have go the wrong way for you. That is the worst kind of policy to be optically poor, right? The kind of policy that people who are politically disengaged will notice is making the buses more expensive. It is taking away the money that you get in your bank account for being an old person during the winter. It's not difficult to understand that things that affect people directly in their pockets rather than nebulous ideas about changing tax regimes is far more politically damaging than just going into the election saying we'll probably need to raise taxes.
But
and
can I just but
nobody talked. But I mean, look.
So I'm just going to. I'm not. I don't actually. You know, you said I disagree with you guys on the majority point. I don't. It's not that. It's just that I just want to explain what they think.
Yeah.
Right? Which is what the Labour Party thought was that they couldn't make those promises before the last election if they were going to have the majority that they ended up having. They believe, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong. They believe that having a massive majority gives them political stability. The reason why I think those people who are musing on whether Keir Starmer will be there or not are probably wrong is that I think actually the people who work for Keir Starmer did a pretty good job at controlling the selection of MPs, which means that obviously when you've got over 400 MPs, there are going to be dissent, but most of those people are fairly loyal to the leadership. However,
but the problem is that they're loyal to the leadership Politburo in the background. And again, Anushka, you wrote the book. You know who Labour Together are. You know that they're in control of Keir. You know that he's the puppet Prime Minister. You know full well this man is in control of policy. He isn't in control of direction. He isn't in control of the party. Morgan McSweeney is in control of the party. Pat McFadden is in control of the party. These are the people who the selected MPs that they deliberately, as you say, did a good job at selecting. No, they intervened in democracy is what you actually mean. But they selected these MPs for loyalty to the Politburo, to the Central Committee at the centre of the party. They're not loyal to Keir Starmer as an individual. If Morgan McSweeney and Pat McFadden and people at the top feel like Keir Starmer isn't going to win them the next election, they will immediately get rid of him. They're ruthless. And you know exactly how ruthless they are. You know this is true. You saw them do what they did to the Labour Party from the inside directly, because you wrote a book about it, Anushka. So it's not about whether the backbench MPs will support them. It's about whether the Politburo supports him. If they find a successor that the Politburo supports, they will get anointed into the position of Prime Minister should they get rid of Keir Starmer. It's all about winning to these people. It's all about power. Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for memberships. It's just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.